Hello, welcome back to the gallery tours. We are in Gallery 4. My name is Maxime, and we're going to be going on a little tour of the Bamum peoples. We're going to begin with Sultan Njoya. So Sultan Njoya, you'll first notice that his title is that of a sultan. And this is a good way to lead into the diversity of thought, not just within this personality, but also the peoples of the region. So what we have specifically here is a equestrian sculpture, bronze cast, of Sultan Njoya mounting a horse with spear in hand, almost like a warrior going into battle. Already to situate ourselves, the Bamum and the kingdom he belongs to specifically, the Bamum, are a cluster of kingdoms in Western Cameroon in Central West Africa. And in these cultures, although they're similar, they're very unique in many senses. And one way they represent themselves is through the arts they create. Although there's a lot of similarities you'll see, there are also very, very major differences. So this is a good way to zoom back into the Sultan Njoya and how his story is important to understanding the rest of the cultures. So he begins his reign in 1897, which is when European encroachment is really at its beginning to peak. And so he is at the junction of multiple tensions. Not only is there the external threat, but there's also the internal unrest in the sense that there are the other kingdoms, which are rivals of his, that in order for him to impose himself within the region, he also has to subdue. In order to do so, he would integrate a lot of different cultures. And this is where we can continue the story. One of the first things that he would integrate will begin with the aspect of religion. Religiously speaking, he would adopt Islam from the north and Christianity from Europe, and this was due to the presence of Germans on what would become Cameroon, and as well as local religions and the importance that would be in solidifying a culture, especially a culture which is centered around the king. So he would adopt Islam for the sake of legitimizing himself in the eyes of opposing Islamic cultures. We have specifically, for example, the Fulani in northern Nigeria, the Hausa, or even the Sokoto culture that emerged around, or at a time slightly prior to his reign, but was still a force. And so in that sense, it put him on par, because one of the ways that the Islamic cultures would legitimize their conquests is through that of religion. And so by becoming a sultan, he was then a peer, and so there was no need for an invasion. With Christianity, it distills the threat that European culture would impose, because with him converting to Christianity in the eyes, again, of an outside conqueror, he then again is legitimized as a ruler in their eyes. And then finally, with his local religion, the Bamum religion, he would use these two religions, Islam and Christianity, and fuse them within his own religion in order to one, solidify his own culture in the form of religion, and two, to allow it to progress in a sense. And this is really where he becomes such an interesting character. On the topic of progress, he made a lot of initiatives, and he's actually quite a controversial personality because of the ways he went about this. One of the innovations he made was, for example, with writing. Writing, of course, as we know it, is an important tool. And he saw this especially within the realm of his own language, which did not yet have an alphabet of its own. The importance of developing an alphabet for his own languages especially has to do with the fact that these languages, the Bantu languages, specifically his Bamum, is quite, and if not totally, unrelated to languages from, say, the West, or even Arabic that might have come from the North, or even those that are found in Nigeria, which are a totally different language family. And so in that sense, by having its own alphabet, you're able to inscribe the values that your language already has. An easy way to allude to that is with the Bantu cultures in general. You have the word ba, which is how a lot of these are associated. You have the Bakuba, the Bakongo, the Bayaka, the Bamileke that we're already speaking of, and all those subgroups. And one thing that unites them, not politically necessarily, but really more ethnically, is the word Ba, which means people. And so, to lead us back into the idea of language, you can make the association, for example, in terms of not just developing a language, but even perpetuating it and making it understandable from within. The word ba, if it were a sound, could be, for example, within a script, the symbol of a person. These types of ideas are similar, for example, in Chinese, where the word for China is a box with a line in the middle, which is to indicate the center of the world. And so in that sense, by doing so, this is a manner of his to not just push his language forward, but if anything, to solidify it. And this is why a lot of his innovations are regarded and still studied to this day, and why he's such an important personality within the history of Cameroon. His story concludes quite unfortunately with his exile with the French powers that come in. He would die outside of his kingdom. However, his palace and much of the legacy that he left behind are still being maintained today. You can even still visit his palace in Cameroon, and in the palace itself are many of the workshops he started then, such as the printing press for the language, the Bamum script that he developed. A lot of these initiatives are still in place there, and hopefully with moments like these where we get to share, it's another opportunity for these kind of developments to not just be remembered, but even to be continued.